por estar aquí en su programa Tal y Como Es. Como todas las semanas estamos aquí para traerles a ustedes lo último que está ocurriendo tanto en los Estados Unidos, la ciudad de Nueva York específicamente y bueno, la República Dominicana. Y como siempre me acompaña Miguel Estrella. Miguel, ¿cómo te sientes?
Arelis, muy contento, entusiasmado, feliz de tener con nosotros a la señora Maron, quien es la candidata por la posición tan importante aquí en esta ciudad de Manhattan, de ser fiscal precisamente por este condado de Manhattan. De suerte que tenemos la dicha de tenerla con nosotros esta tarde y vamos a estar hablando de la criminalidad aquí en esta localidad.
Así es, Miguel. Ms. Maron, welcome to Tal y Como Es, our program here. And it's a pleasure for us to have you here tonight.
Muchas gracias por la invitación y espero que podamos tener toda la conversación en español, pero la realidad es que yo puedo hablar Spanglish, like many New Yorkers. Entonces necesitamos hablar en inglés y un poco Spanglish.
Perfecto,
Pero
sí. Creo que todos estamos acostumbrados a esa mezcla aquí en la ciudad de Nueva York.
Yes, we can be switching from one language to another. People don't understand that. They're used to that. Anyway,
Yes.
Ms. Moran, tell us what motivated you to run for this position against Mr. Alvin Bragg.
Right. Well, I've been an attorney for many years and I worked in the criminal courts and the criminal justice system. And I know what our courts look like when they're working correctly, when we're putting the people behind bars who need to be arrested and who need to be prosecuted. And of course, people also need a good defense. I was a defense lawyer for many years. All Americans have constitutional rights that need to be honored and respected in courts. But in order for our system to work well, both sides of the courtroom need to do their job. The prosecutor needs to prosecute the criminals and the people who are breaking the law, and defense lawyers need to do their job as well. Of course, it's an incredibly important job. But Alvin Bragg has gotten it confused. He's the chief prosecutor in Manhattan, and he's letting people out of jail. He's not prosecuting whole categories of crime. And then sometimes he gets so gosh darn confused, he prosecutes the wrong people. He prosecutes people who are simply defending themselves or defending other people. So he's gotten it wrong, completely and totally, and he needs to go.
It's good to know that and to hear that we are having someone who's looking at it from what we would say common sense. No one feels safe here in the city, yet we do hear Alvin Bragg and we hear Mayor Eric Adams telling us that this is kind of like an illusion that people feel unsafe when they have implemented all these different things. Bail reform has been something that has affected us very, very much here in the city. We want to know from the perspective of a district attorney, what is it that they're doing regarding this? Because that needs to change.
There were really four changes to laws in Albany, in our state legislature that had a huge impact on us here in the city. And you're 100% correct to point out bail reform because it's one of the biggest changes that happened. And they really took away from judges the ability to exercise discretion about who should have bail set on them and who should remain. They got it completely wrong. Judges do need to be able to make that decision on a case-by-case basis. And what bail reform did is take away that ability from judges and taken away from prosecutors too, and just say in a whole multiple categories of cases, you can't set bail on people. Someone could commit the crime on Monday, be arrested, be let out, commit the crime again on Tuesday, be arrested and let out, commit the same crime again on Wednesday, and you can't lock them up while those cases are pending. And it takes a long time to go through a whole trial or a plea bargain. So that's one of the laws they got wrong. And then I'll quickly tell you the three others. They changed the age at which you could prosecute people, the raise the age law. And if you're feeling tenderhearted, you think, oh, this young man is only 15 or 16 years old. He shouldn't be treated like an adult in the criminal justice system. But all laws, there's always a consequence when you make those changes. And the consequence is younger and younger people are being told, oh, you should, you're not going to get in trouble now if you have this gun. You're not going to get in trouble now if you have these drugs. So they're recruiting younger and younger people into more serious crime. And that's the exact opposite of what you want to do when you're passing a law to try to help and protect 15 and 16-year-olds. They also changed the way our parole law works, so that people who violate their parole conditions are doing less time. And they changed the discovery laws so that it's much harder for the prosecutor to meet all of the pre-trial discovery things they have to do. As a collection altogether, when you take all four of those laws together, it makes it much harder for the prosecutors to do their jobs. And then you add Alvin Bragg, who doesn't want to do the job, and you see the breakdown in law and order that we all see in our communities.
Creo, Arelis, que sería bueno ir traduciendo los puntos claves que la señora Maron está describiendo en este caso. El impedimento que le han hecho a la prosecución de las leyes contra los criminales por la famosa bail reform, la reforma de fianzas que se hizo, que lo único que beneficia es al criminal, le quita de las manos al juez poder ponerlo en las rejas y se encargan entonces de procrastinar. Y entonces los criminales cometen la misma violación al día siguiente y luego al día siguiente y no pueden ser realmente procesados por la ley. Entonces ella va a luchar grandemente por devolver ese poder a los jueces que le fue arrebatado, incluso a los fiscales también. Entonces ella se va a encargar de llevar ese poder otra vez a aquellas personas que están mandados a tomar decisiones y mantener a los criminales detrás de las rejas. Ms. Moran, what would be your priorities once you be elected as a general attorney for Manhattan?
Well, I think what maybe a lot of people know is that Alvin Bragg wrote something called the Day One memo. And on day one, he said he's not going to prosecute crimes like resisting arrest. He won't prosecute people who commit the crime of robbery in a commercial establishment unless somebody gets hurt. He'll just pretend like it's a misdemeanor. I would throw out that memo. I would immediately say we are going to treat all crimes like the crimes that the law says they are, in particular resisting arrest. Because you have to work with the police in a city like New York City. It's absolutely unacceptable to tie the police's hands behind their back and tell them, go out there and make arrests and fight crime. But by the way, we're winking at all the criminals and telling them you don't really have to listen to the police because you'll never get arrested for resisting a lawful order. So we need to immediately reverse that policy, that day one policy that Alvin Bragg wrote. And you need to make sure that people know if you break the law, you're going to get arrested. And that's if you walk into a pharmacy and steal all the shampoo, or if you walk into a bodega with a weapon, with a knife or with a gun, that is a serious crime and it needs to be treated like a serious crime and prosecuted like a serious crime.
Bueno, Miguel, esto es muy, pero muy importante. Básicamente estamos hablando de cuáles serían sus prioridades una vez que ella sea electa como fiscal del distrito de Manhattan. Y ella habla de este memo muy famoso que se llama el Day One Memo, que Alvin Bragg ejecutó desde el primer día que entró a esa posición, el cual básicamente le está dando más poder a los delincuentes. Primero, porque le permite resistirse al arresto. Y también, segundo, porque si va a un sitio comercial y se roba algo, pues bueno, las personas, los dueños de esos de ese comercio, no pueden hacer nada, al menos que ellos, vamos a decir, le saquen una pistola o que lo maten más o menos, o lo hieran. Esas son dos de las medidas que básicamente tienen que ver con este Day One Memo. Y eso es algo que ha afectado mucho, pero mucho nuestra comunidad, Miguel, porque la mayoría de ellos son dueños de pequeñas bodegas. Es imposible. Y es tan así, Miguel, que muchos de ellos también han tenido que ir y sacar un arma para poderse proteger. Entonces es algo que debemos de prestar atención, y entiendo que Maron, de ser electa para la fiscal del distrito, tiene mucha razón en tomar esto en cuenta también, porque en nuestra comunidad hay una cantidad alta de policías dominicanos, Miguel, en la fuerza policial. This is great that we will be having these kind of things. I feel that there's a confusion, just like you stated, of what a district attorney, like what are the responsibilities of a district attorney. Many people just don't understand, and because of that, they don't see why is it that Alvin Bragg is not the right fit for this particular position. So just explain to us in our community so they can understand what would be your responsibility and should be Alvin Bragg's responsibility right now as a district attorney.
Absolutely. So Alvin Bragg's position is Manhattan. Each borough has their own district attorney. And in Manhattan, he's the chief law enforcement officer. So if you break the law, if you commit a crime and you're arrested by the police and you're going to be prosecuted in state court, of course, there's also federal court in everywhere in the entire country. But in state court, if you are violating the New York State penal law, you are arrested by the police and you are prosecuted by Alvin Bragg's office, by the Manhattan District Attorney's office. All of the crime that we don't want to see in our cities, in our streets, and in our subways should go before his office and should be treated seriously and should be prosecuted. What we have gotten from Alvin Bragg is instead, if you recall, about a year and a half ago, there were riots at Columbia University, and there were a ton of people wearing masks and rioting and protesting. But protesting is legal. You can protest. We have First Amendment rights as Americans, but smashing windows and breaking into things is not protected speech. And Alvin Bragg just dismissed all those cases, right? He just chose not to prosecute them. We need a prosecutor who sees law breaking and says, there has to be consequences. If you do this, you will be arrested and you will be prosecuted. And that's the part where he's really, completely fallen down. And I'll just say, you have both mentioned how much it impacts, the Dominican community, the broader Hispanic community. But I'll say this, it impacts every community. In Chinatown, people are suffering from the lawlessness. On the Upper West Side, on the Upper East Side, when we see people go into stores and steal things and walk out the door because they know they won't be prosecuted, that's happening in every single neighborhood in New York City. So we have a commonality as New Yorkers to want to make this change.
Ms. Maron, what I'm about to ask you and creates a lot of concern in the everyday people, because they see how these individuals go into businesses that they steal, and it doesn't matter the amount of money they take away in merchandise. If it doesn't accumulate up to $1,000, they cannot be arrested. Since I know you are fluently in Spanish, we already heard what you said at the beginning of the program. What would like to tell us in Spanish, what will you do about it, and how this violation and breaking of the law can be corrected? O sea, me refería cómo cogen mercancías de las tiendas y si el oficial llega y todo lo que tomaron no llega a $1,000, no lo pueden arrestar.
Bueno, yo puedo probar, no sé si yo puedo explicar perfectamente en español, pero es simple porque Alvin Bragg es el fiscal, pero no es, tenemos las leyes que en Albany, el legislature, no sé cómo se dice, pero
la legislatura.
Que ellos escriben las leyes y es la responsabilidad de Alvin Bragg. Él necesita hacer su trabajo correctamente. Él no puede decidir, oh, me gusta esta ley, no me gusta esta ley, voy a hacer mi trabajo bien. este día, pero no este día. Nosotros necesitamos una fiscal que entiendes las leyes, no es una opción, no es, él necesita um, prosecute. Perdón, no estoy pensando que voy a hablar en
Procesarse.
español. No puedo decir perfectamente, pero la realidad es que todos los New Yorkers, if you are an immigrant, estás inmigrante que estás acá por una semana o si estás viviendo acá toda su vida, tú entiendes que la ley no es una cosa opcional. Tú necesitas escuchar la policía cuando ellos dan un orden legal y tú necesitamos una ciudad cuando, para mí, estoy una madre de 4 hijos y mis hijos están en el subte cada día. Yo no quiero pensar si estoy como todas las madres en esta ciudad, estoy nervioso cuando yo sé que mis hijos están en el subte muy tarde en la noche. Ahora tengo, mis más grande tiene 19 años, tengo 19, 17 y 15 años y mi más joven tiene 9 años. Pero es todas las personas en esta ciudad. Nosotros, yo vivo en esta ciudad ahora para más que 30 años y nosotros sabemos que hay una ciudad que es más seguro what I want to say is like, we all know what it's like to live in a safer city because it was safer not so long ago. I wish I could say that in Spanish,
Sí,
but but I'm trying to say like, we're not looking for some sort of magical world where there's no crime and everything's perfect. We're looking for what we had 10 years ago, where you could walk into a pharmacy and buy shampoo. That's not a big ask, and our elected officials should be able to provide that to us. I'll
yes.
work on saying that in Spanish, guys.
Sí, básicamente ella está hablando de que primeramente las leyes no son una opción, son las leyes
Sí.
existentes y se supone que un fiscal, su trabajo es enforzar esas leyes una vez que hay un crimen. Y sabemos que desafortunadamente la legislatura, los asambleístas en Albany cambiaron tanto las leyes que le está, como quien dice, cruzando las manos a los mismos jueces y a los fiscales también para poder procesar muchos de estos crímenes. Pero no es que estamos tratando de exigir una ciudad que fuera una utopía, sino una ciudad que ya anteriormente, hace 10 años, existía, donde teníamos las reglas, donde los policías eran respetados, donde nosotros caminábamos por las calles sin pensar en que nos iban a atracar y cogíamos el tren sin problema. O lo más simple, ir a una tienda y no tener que esperar que venga una persona que atienda para darnos una pasta de dientes. O sea, era algo tan simple como tú ir y ahí lo podías encontrar. Ahora, si quieres comprar una pasta de dientes o un cepillo, necesitas esperar a que alguien vaya y te abra para tú poderlos tener.
Y además, Arely, cerca del 70% de los que cometen crímenes tienden a reincidir antes de los 6 meses. Eso quiere decir que si el fiscal no hace su trabajo debidamente, se te llenan las calles de criminales, que es lo que está pasando en Nueva York, pero él mismo ha creado la plataforma para esconder los crímenes, porque eso que estamos hablando, que la señora Maron está diciendo, no sale reportado como crimen, sale escondido. Sí. Quiere decir que tenemos que salir de este alcalde, Alvin Bragg, ahora en las elecciones del próximo 4 de noviembre, ¿no?
El fiscal del
de este fiscal hay que sacarlo de Manhattan porque es que nos está llenando las calles de criminales.
Sí, y es porque no está procesando esos crímenes. Por eso nosotros tenemos lo que vemos ahora mismo y los cuales no se encuentran en las estadísticas porque no se están procesando. Quería preguntar...
Antes de entrar ahí, Arelis, que académicamente es bueno entender que el criminal se lleva a la cárcel porque lo sacan de la sociedad para que la sociedad funcione mejor.
Exactamente. Quería preguntarle ahora mismo, porque tenemos también una contienda para la alcaldía donde tenemos un candidato que dice que básicamente va a quitarle más fondos a la policía. Eso es algo que nos tiene totalmente preocupado a nosotros porque ahora mismo vemos los problemas que tenemos. Nosotros venimos de países donde estamos huyendo a ese sistema donde no hay ningún tipo de orden, no hay seguridad ciudadana. Entonces, ahora nos encontramos en una ciudad donde estamos, como quien dice, experimentando más o menos lo mismo. ¿Qué piensa usted acerca de que ahora nos quieren también quitar más fondos a la policía y y también cambiar los policías como que fueran, en vez de ser policía, mandarnos en sí trabajadores sociales a la calle. So I'm basically saying that many of us comes from countries, and the reason why we flee these countries is because there is a lot of disorder, there is no security, there is nothing that we feel is important for us to feel safe. And now we see New York City is kind of looking like many of those countries that we have fled. And now we have a candidate that is saying that he's looking to defund the police and replace the police officers with like some sort of puppet. No, in this case, that he wants to send to the streets other like social workers, and that basically is it's a warning sign for us because we don't feel safe right now. I feel that if this person is elected, is going to be detrimental for the city. What are your thoughts about defunding the police and all these different policies that we think are going to be very, very bad for New York City?
You know, I ran previously for office as a Democrat, and I was strongly opposed to defund the police. I thought defund the police was one of the stupidest ideas. It didn't take into reality the way our city functions. I opposed it. And the Democratic Party in our city, and I was a Democrat for 3 years, the Democratic Party in our city went very, very extreme and radical and likes these experiments like replacing cops with social workers. And that's why I left the party, and I'm running as a conservative and as a Republican. I think Mamdani, who is the Democratic nominee for mayor, if you look at who voted for him, it's, kids with expensive college degrees who have no idea what it's like to live in a socialist country or to escape from a failed country and to have to build a new life. Working class people, we're not voting for a 33-year-old who wants socialism. He has no idea what he is talking about, and he has terrible ideas. I think the vast majority of New Yorkers want more common sense, and people are being, socialism sounds good. That's why it keeps finding a home in different countries in this world, because it sounds really good. The government's going to take care of everything and pay everything. But in every country where they've tried it, guess what? People are escaping and leaving and coming here to this country to build a life where you can work and you can be successful and you can, raise your children in the success that is the United States of America. So I am deeply concerned and deeply worried about the bad ideas that I see coming to New York. And I hear from immigrants all over, from immigrants from Latin America, from Eastern Europe, from China, immigrants who know how bad it can get when the government thinks that they're going to take over all business and all decisions. And I hear that concern from immigrants all over the city all the time. And so it's a scary time.
I totally agree, Ms. Maron. Many young people in the United States, they feel like saying they are socialist is funny. It's like it's nice. It sounds good, but they don't understand that basically that socialism starts by eliminating the private properties,
Yes.
and they don't understand that. So it's very important that you describe what socialism is. And let's move over and let's say goodbye to this administration, the Alvin Bragg, and let's say yes to Mr. Cody Sliwa. We are supporting Cody Sliwa for mayor, and we are very happy and we appreciate your time here with us this afternoon with our program Tal y Como Es and Arelis Mejia.
Yeah, we want to know how we support your campaign for everyone that's watching us. Para todos los que nos están viendo, estamos hablando de Maron. Ella está corriendo para fiscal del distrito de Manhattan. Nosotros necesitamos hacer un trabajo para asegurarnos de que Alvin Bragg, que es como quien dice la persona responsable hasta cierto punto de muchos de los problemas que tenemos aquí en la ciudad, no vuelva a esa posición. Vamos a votar por Maron. Ms. Maron, how can we support your campaign in order for district attorney this coming November?
Please go to the website maudformanhattan.com, MAUD for FAOR Manhattan, maudformanhattan.com. You can sign up to get emails. You can donate. You can find out more information about my platform. Y Arelis y Miguel, muchas gracias por esta entrevista. Voy a practicar mi español más y podemos hablar en español la próxima vez.
Gracias a Ken y a Sammy Ravelo por haber colaborado con esta entrevista.
Así es, muchísimas gracias a todos ustedes que nos acompañaron y ya saben, ella acaba de decir, pueden apoyar su campaña yendo a su website que es maudformanhattan.com, pueden donar, también se pueden suscribir a un correo electrónico para así saber cuáles son todos los proyectos con los cuales se están trabajando y esperemos que obviamente ella sea ganadora por el Partido Republicano en noviembre.
Todos a votar por Maud Moran. Que Dios lo bendiga.
Que Dios lo bendiga.